Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi for March 8th, 2025, Shabbat. This is after Shabbat. I apologize that I'm getting this out late. So, we're at Sanhedrin 81. Let's see. Do not speak to your father in that manner, where you tell him directly that he is mistaken. Rather, raise the matter in a circumspect manner, as it is taught in Braita. In a case where one's father was violating Torah matters, he should not say to him, "Father, you violated Torah matters." Rather, he should say to him, "Father, it is written so in the Torah." The Gemara asks, ultimately, isn't this formulation identical to that previous formulation? In both cases, he embarrasses his father. Rather, say to him, "Father, there is a verse written in the Torah, and this is what it says." Tell him the halacha or the verse in a way in which it is not obvious that it relates to the action that his father performed. Now we have a new Mishnah. It says, one who is liable to be executed with two different court-imposed death penalties, as he violated two different capital transgressions, is sentenced to the more severe form of execution. If one violated one transgression for which he is liable to receive two death penalties, so if one engaged in intercourse with his mother-in-law, who is also a married woman, he is sentenced to the more severe form of execution. Rabbi Yoshi says he is sentenced to the form of execution that he is liable to receive due to the first relationship that came upon him, so the first crime that he committed. If she was his mother-in-law before she was married, he is executed by burning. If she was married before she was his mother-in-law, he is punished by strangulation. Now we're back to the Gemara. It says, with regard to the ruling in the Mishnah that one is liable to be executed with two different court-imposed death penalties is sentenced to the more severe form of execution, the Gemara asks, isn't this obvious? Rather, would you say that he would profit from the fact that he violated a second capital transgression and would receive a more lenient punishment? Rava says, with what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a case where he violated a relatively minor transgression punishable by a less severe form of execution, and his verdict was issued for the minor transgression, and he then violated a major transgression punishable by a more severe form of execution. It could enter your mind to say, once this verdict was finalized for the minor transgression, the legal status of this individual is that of a dead man, and anything that he does thereafter is insignificant. To counter this, the Tana teaches us that he is liable to be punished for the subsequent transgression, and if it is punishable by a more severe form of execution, he is executed with that form of execution. The father of Rab Yosef bar Hama asked of Rabba bar Natan, from where is this matter that the sages stated derived? One who is liable to be executed with two different court-imposed death penalties is sentenced to the more severe form of execution. Rabba bar Natan answered, it is derived from a verse, as it is written, and he begets a violent son, a shedder of blood, who does to a brother any of these. And he had not done any of these, for he has eaten upon the mountains and defiled his neighbor's wife, has wronged the poor and needy, has taken by robbery, does not return collateral, and has lifted his eyes toward the idols, has committed abomination. Ezekiel 18, verses 10 through 12. This is interpreted, quote, and he begets a violent son, a shedder of blood. This is one who is liable to be executed by beheading with a sword. Quote, defiled his neighbor's wife. This is engaging in intercourse with a married woman, for which one is liable to be executed by strangulation. Quote, lifted his eyes toward the idols. This is idol worship, for which one is liable to be executed by stoning, and it is written thereafter, quote, he shall be put to death, his blood shall be upon himself. Ezekiel 18:13, which means that he is executed by stoning. It appears that one who violates several capital transgressions is executed with the most severe form of execution for which he is liable. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak objects to this, say that all of these transgressions listed in the verse are punishable by stoning. How, quote, and he begets a violent son, a shedder of blood, this is a wayward and rebellious son who is executed by stoning. Quote, defiled his neighbor's wife, this is engaged in intercourse with a betrothed young woman, for which one is executed by stoning. Quote, lifted his eyes toward the idols, this is idol worship, for which one is executed by stoning. The Gemara answers, if so, according to that understanding of the verse, what is Ezekiel teaching us? According to the first understanding, a new halacha is derived from here, but according to the interpretation of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, there is nothing novel. The Gemara rejects this contention. Perhaps it is this halachot of the Torah that Ezekiel was reiterating, admonishing the people to fulfill the directives of the Torah. The Gemara answers, if it is so that this was Ezekiel's intention, it would have been necessary for him to reiterate the halachot in the manner that Moses, our teacher, reviewed it, employing the same language. The fact that Ezekiel diverged from Moses' formulation indicates that he sought to teach a new halacha. The The Gemara cites a homiletic interpretation of Rab Acha, son of Rab Hanina, taught. What is the meaning of that which is written? Quote, he did not eat upon the mountains, nor did he lift his eyes toward the idols of the house of Israel, nor did he defile his neighbor's wife, nor did he approach a menstruating woman. Ezekiel 18, verse 6. This cannot be understood literally, as refraining from performing these transgressions is not sufficient to characterize an individual as righteous. Quote, he did not eat upon the mountains is an allusion to the fact that he did not eat due to the merit of his fathers, rather he relies on his own merit in righteousness. Quote, nor did he lift his eyes toward the idols of the house of Israel is a reference to one who distances himself from anything similar to idol worship to the extent that he did not walk with upright stature, typical of a haughty person, as haughtiness is typical of idolaters. Quote, nor did he defile his neighbor's wife, is an allusion to the fact that he did not infringe upon another's trade, thereby compromising his livelihood. Quote, nor did he approach a menstruating woman, is an allusion to the fact that he did not benefit from the charity fund, even if he was needy. And it is written with regard to one who refrains from these actions, quote, he is a righteous man, he shall live. Ezekiel 18, verse 9. The Gemara relates, when Rabban Gamliel would reach this verse, quote, and has kept all my statutes and has performed them, he shall live, Ezekiel 18, verse 19, he would cry and say, it is one who performs all of them who lives. One who performs one of them, no, he shall not live. Rabbi Akiva said to Rabban Gamliel in an attempt to console him, if that is so, that the term all is understood in that manner with regard to that which is written concerning the forbidden relatives enumerated in the Torah, quote, do not become defiled with all of these, Leviticus 18:24, would you also say that there are two, one who is in violation of all the prohibitions, yes, he is punished, but one who is in violation of one of them, no, he is not punished. Rather clearly, all of these means in violation of one of all of these. Therefore, here too, the verse in Ezekiel, quote, and has kept all my statutes, means that in fulfillment of one of all these, one merits eternal life. The Mishnah teaches if one violated one transgression for which he is liable to receive 2 death penalties, he is sentenced to the more severe form of execution. Rabbi Yoshi says he is sentenced to the form of execution that he is liable to receive due to the first relationship that came upon him. It is taught in a Baraita. How, in what circumstances, does Rabbi Yoshi say that he is sentenced to the first relationship that came upon him? This is the woman. If this woman was a widow or a divorcee, when she became his mother-in-law, and then she became a married woman, and he engaged in intercourse with her, he is sentenced to execution by burning for engaging in intercourse with his mother-in-law. If before he married her daughter, she was a married woman, and then she became his mother-in-law, and he engaged in intercourse with her, he is sentenced to execution by strangulation for engaging in intercourse with a married woman. Okay, so Rav Ada bar Ahava said to Rava, if this woman was a widow or a divorcee when she became his mother-in-law, and then she became a married woman and engaged in intercourse with her, he is sentenced to execution by burning for engaging in intercourse with his mother-in-law. Why is this the halacha? Let him be sentenced for violating the prohibition of a married woman as well. As Rabbi Abahu says, Rabbi Yoshi concedes in the case of an expanded prohibition. Rabbi Yoshi holds that generally a prohibition does not take effect where another prohibition already exists. Nevertheless, when the second transgression is expanded prohibition, that is, one that incorporates additional people into the list of those for whom the items or individuals are forbidden, Rabbi Yoshi concedes that since the second prohibition applies to others, it takes effect concerning the person included in the first prohibition as well. Here, too, the prohibition of intercourse with a married woman is expanded, as it applies to everyone and is therefore more comprehensive than the prohibition of intercourse with his mother-in-law, which applies only to her sons-in-laws. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yoshi, he should be punished also for violating the prohibition of intercourse with a married woman. Rava said to him, Ada, my son, will you kill him with 2 death penalties? Rabbi Yoshi concedes that the prohibition of engaging in intercourse with a married woman takes effect in addition to the prohibition of engaging in intercourse with his mother-in-law. If he had violated the transgression unwittingly, he would have been liable to bring 2 sin offerings. But if he violated the transgression intentionally, it is impossible to execute him by strangulation after executing him by burning. New Mishnah. The Mishnah says, one who was flogged for violating a prohibition and then repeated the violation and was flogged again assumes the status of a forewarned transgressor. The court places him into the vaulted chamber, so la kippah, and feeds him barley bread until his belly ruptures. Due to the low quality food, he dies. The Gemara now says, due to the fact that he was flogged and repeated the violation, does the court place him into the vaulted chamber for the duration of his life and advance his death? Rabbi Yirmiyah says that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, here we are dealing with lashes administered for violations of prohibitions punishable by excision from the world to come, karet. As when one violates such a prohibition, the man is essentially liable to be punished with death at the hands of heaven, but his death is not advanced by the court, as it is administered by the heavenly court. And in this case, since he surrenders his life, through his repeated transgressions, we advance his execution upon him by placing him in the vaulted chamber. Rabbi Yaakov said to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlifa, "Come and I will explain to you the circumstances of this halacha. It is in a case where he was flogged with lashes for repeatedly violating one prohibition punishable with karet that he is considered to have surrendered his life. But if he received lashes for violating 2 or for violating 3 different prohibitions punishable with karet, he is not placed in the vaulted chamber, as he merely is tasting the taste of prohibition and wants to enjoy the different experiences, and he is not thereby surrendering his life to that extent." The Mishnah teaches, one who is flogged for violating a prohibition and then repeated the violation, the court places him into the vaulted chamber. The Gemara infers, he is placed in the vaulted chamber if he repeated the violation, doing it a second time. Even if he did not again repeat the violation, doing it a third time, let us say that the Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, as if it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, doesn't he say presumptive status is not established until the action performed is 3 times? In his opinion, only after violating the prohibition 3 times would one assume the status of a forewarned transgressor. Ravina rejects that proof and says, even if you say that the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the Tana holds that transgressions, not lashes, establish a presumptive status of a transgressor. Therefore, the Mishnah that teaches one who was flogged for violating a prohibition and then repeated the violation and was flogged is placed in the vaulted chamber only after he violated the prohibition a 3rd time, is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. The Gemara raises an objection from a Braita. If one performed a transgression that has lashes as its punishment, the 1st and 2nd time the court flogs him, and the 3rd time the court places him in the vaulted chamber. Abba Shaul says even the 3rd time the court flogs him, and the 4th time the court places him in the vaulted chamber. What? Is it not that everyone agrees that lashes establish the presumptive status of a transgressor? And if it is concerning the dispute of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, whether presumptive status is established after 2 or 3 times, that the rabbis and Abba Shaul disagree. The Gemara rejects that parallel. No, it can be explained that everyone, the rabbis and Abba Shaul, agrees with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel that presumptive status is established after 3 times. And here it is with regard to this matter that they disagree. That one sage, the rabbis holds, transgressions establish the presumptive status of a transgressor, and after he is flogged twice and performs the transgression a 3rd time, the court places him in the vaulted chamber. And one sage, Abba Shaul, holds lashes establish the presumptive status of a transgressor, and it is only after he performs the 3rd transgression and is flogged for that transgression that he assumes the status of a forewarned transgressor. And when he performs the transgression a 4th time, he is placed in the vaulted chamber. The Gemara questions that interpretation of the dispute, and that which is taught in Braita with regard to a case where witnesses forewarned him that he was about to violate a prohibition punishable by lashes, and he was silent and did not acknowledge that he accepted the forewarning, and likewise a case where the witnesses forewarned him and he bowed his head but did not explicitly acknowledge that he accepted the forewarning. The 1st and 2nd time they forewarned him, the court does not flog him, because he did not accept the forewarning. If this scenario occurs a 3rd time, the court places him in the vaulted chamber. Abba Shaul says, even the 3rd time the witnesses forewarn him, the court does not flog him, and the 4th time the court places him in the vaulted chamber. So we have to keep in mind that this is open to all types of people. So you could have someone who's mentally defective that you tell them something they don't comprehend, but they might comprehend actions. So this is why, the Torah is important, because you have to deal with all types of situations. But this is also a pattern. So we see patterns with things. So you take this pattern and you apply it to different things in different areas of life. It's not just specific to these types of like cookie cutter like situations, because most of the time they're talking about a lot of times they're talking about like theoretical situations and not like real life situations. Like a lot of the stuff that we've been discussing, throughout the Talmud is theoretical things. Things, if they happen, they like rarely happen, right? There's the tradition that the court, rarely administered the death penalty. So, continuing here, it says, and there, in the case in the Braita where there are no lashes, as he did not explicitly acknowledge acceptance of the forewarning. The reference is to a case where one violated the transgression several times. And if the dispute is not with regard to the number of times required to establish presumptive status, with regard to what matter do they disagree? Ravina says it is with regard to whether placing an individual into a vaulted chamber requires forewarning, and they disagree. The rabbis hold that once he disregarded the forewarning 3 times, the court places him in a vaulted chamber. Abba Shaul holds that after he is forewarned 3 times that he is flogged if he performs the transgression. He requires additional forewarning before the 4th time that he will be placed in a vaulted chamber if he performs the transgression again. The Gemara clarifies. And what is the nature of this vaulted chamber? Rav Yehuda says, it is a small chamber that is full of height of the transgressor, and it does not allow him to move in it. The Gemara asks, and where is this punishment intimated? Reish Lakish said that it is intimated in the verse, evil shall kill the wicked, Psalms 34:22. Ultimately, an evildoer finds his demise through his evil, and the result is this harsh form of death. The Gemara cites a related statement, and Reish Lakish says, what is the meaning of that which is written, for man also knows not his time, like fish snared in an evil net? Ecclesiastes 9:12. What is the nature of this evil net? Reish Lakish says it is a hook. Although it is small and the fish is much larger, the fish cannot escape it. With regard to one, so back to the Mishnah says, with regard to one who kills a person not in the presence of witnesses, and it is impossible to judge him in court, the court places him into a vaulted chamber and feeds him sparing bread and scant water. Isaiah 30, verse 20. The Gemara asks, if there are no witnesses, from where do we know that he killed a person and is liable to be punished? Rav says the Tana of the Mishnah is speaking about a case of disjointed testimony where the witnesses were not together and they witnessed the murder from different vantage points. The court cannot convict a person for committing a murder based on that type of testimony, even though it is clear that the witnesses are telling the truth. Shmuel says the Tana of the Mishnah is speaking about a case where the witnesses testified that they witnessed the murder, but there was no forewarning, and therefore the court cannot convict him. Rav Chisda says that Avimi says the Tana of the Mishnah is speaking of a case where the witnesses contradicted each other in the examinations that involve matters peripheral to the murder, but did not contradict each other in the interrogations which are integral to the murder. So the time and the place, therefore. So it is clear that the court that the accused is guilty, and consequently they place him in the vaulted chamber. As we learned in the Mishnah, so Sanhedrin 40a, there was an incident that in Ben Zakkai examined the witnesses with regard to the stems of figs on the fig tree beneath which the murder took place. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai questioned the witnesses about the thickness of the stems in order to determine whether they would contradict each other in this peripheral detail in order to save the accused. Sanhedrin 41a. The Mishnah teaches, and feeds him sparing bread and scant water. The Gemara asks, what is different in the Mishnah here that the Tana teaches that the court gives him sparing bread and scant water in the vaulted chamber? And what is different in the previous Mishnah where that the Tana teaches that the court feeds him barley bread until his belly ruptures? Are these two different punishments? Rav Sheshet says, both this and that are one punishment. First, the court gives him sparing bread and scant water until his intestines contract due to his starvation diet, and then the court feeds him barley bread that expands in his innards until his belly ruptures. Back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, with regard to one who steals a kasva, and one who curses with a sorcerer, and one who engaged in intercourse with an Armenian woman, zealots strike him and kill him. Although the Torah does not say that one who performs one of these actions is liable to be executed, it is permitted for anyone who zealously takes vengeance of the Lord to do so. In the case of a priest who performed the temple service in a state of ritual impurity, his priestly brethren do not bring him to court for judgment. Rather, the young men of the priesthood remove him from the temple courtyard and pierce his skull with pieces of wood. In the case of a non-priest who performed the service in the temple, Rabbi Akiva says his execution is by strangulation, and the rabbis say, which is the majority, he is not executed with a court-imposed death penalty. Rather, he is liable to receive the death penalty at the hand of heaven. Back to the Gemara. The Gemara asks, what is the kasva mentioned in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda says it is a term used to describe any service vessel utilized in the temple, and likewise it is stated in the jars, kesot, with which to pour libations, Numbers 4:7. The Gemara asks, and where is it intimated that one who steals a service vessel is liable to be killed by zealots? The Gemara answers that it is intimated in the verse, but they shall not come to see the sacred items as they are being covered. So, kavala, lest they die. Numbers 4:20. The Gemara interprets the term kavala as one who ingests, that is, one who takes, see Job 20:15, and the verse thereby teaches that one who steals a service vessel is liable to be killed. The Mishnah teaches, and one who curses with a sorcerer is among those liable to be killed by zealots. Rav Yosef teaches that the reference is to one who says, let the sorcerer strike this sorcerer, meaning one who curses God in the manner of idol worship, in the name of idol worship. He does not explicitly say God's name, but he believes that a sorcerer can curse the sorcerer who provided him with his powers, that is, the divine presence. The rabbis, meaning the majority, and some say that it was Rabbah, son of Mari, say that the reference is to one who says, let the sorcerer strike him. That is, let the individual with whom he is quarreling and his creator and his provider, since he curses God, it is permitted for zealots to kill him. The Mishnah teaches that one who engages in intercourse with an Armenian woman is among those liable to be killed by zealots. Rav Kahana asks of Rav, and that is the end of 81.